Hello, everyone. How was that screening?
They have to go, but my brother who played Tyrone and my sister-in-law, Leanne Davis, give them some love, please.
Some family in the house.
Yes. Any bad things you have to say about Tyrone can be directed to him.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to thank you all for sticking around for this Q&A. It's going to be a good one. First, let me thank our moderator, Ashley Clark, who's the curatorial director from the Criterion channel. We'll give him a round of applause. Thank you so much. Woo! And now, without further ado, Ashley will introduce you to our esteemed panelists who are here to talk to you after the screening of Compensation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to run down the line. Mark Chery, screenwriter. And a beautiful cameo appearance in the movie that I noticed tonight.
More than one.
More than one. Portia Cobb, producer. Zeinabu Davis, producer, director. And Michelle Banks, lead actress. Can I just have a quick show of hands? Who in the audience is seeing the film for the first time today? Great.
Oh, snap.
So many of you will be feeling the same exhilaration that I felt when I first saw the film in 2019. I was looking to program a film series at the Brooklyn Academy of Music called Black 90s, a turning point in American cinema. The 90s was a really exceptional, interesting decade for black film in America. And I hadn't heard of this film, Compensation, and I found it in my research, and I got a link from the distributor Women Make Movies, so shout out to Women Make Movies.
Yes!
And I sat and watched the movie, and a nice thing happened. You know, it's the kind of thing you want to happen as a programmer, where 15 minutes in I thought, I think this is one of the greatest films I've ever seen. And I programmed the film, and we had a nice attendance, and some very influential critics wrote about the film. The following year, I joined the Criterion Collection, which is a distributor based in New York City. We put out Blu-rays and DVDs and 4Ks, and we have a streaming service, the Criterion channel. I burst through the doors in 2020 when I joined and said, we have to work on this film. And 5 years later now, we are really proud to be releasing the film on Blu-ray. Fully restored and rejuvenated, and I'll let the crew talk about exactly what that rejuvenation means. Released on August the 26th, and it's a really beautiful piece of work, and we're so proud of it. And I want to give a shout out to Nicoletta and Alexis and the whole team that was involved in bringing this film into its present glory. Give everyone a round of applause, please. I'm conscious I'm doing a lot of yapping. We don't have too much time. I've been promised the triangle bed of doom when I've been talking too much, so I better hurry out. I'm going to kick off with one question, but I really would like to bring this out to the audience as quickly as possible, and in particular, if there are hard of hearing or deaf audience members who would like to ask questions, please, we'd like to prioritize you, so make sure you put your hands up and let us know when you want to talk. First of all, though, Zeinabu, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of set the stage for the production. How did this idea first come around? And if you could talk us through how it came from that first idea to what we see on the screen.
Mike. Thank you.
I think we should probably start with the screenwriter saying what he came up with and sees the first one with the idea.
The shy guy gets to speak first. Z always wanted to make a historical piece, a short historical piece, experimental, and we didn't know what it was going to be, but we had ideas like a piece that would be in the style. Hopefully some of you have seen this film, Sans Soleil, which is a Chris a Chris Marker film. He also made La Jetée, kind of like a film that was going to deal with historical memory, of course the arts and poetry, but also blackness, but in a sort of a different and unique and cranky kind of way. She went away to a conference, and I was home. You know, we're connected. I was home, and then I started to have some ideas about illnesses and Paul Laurence Dunbar. Z always liked Paul Laurence Dunbar. He's especially his dialect poetry, which he himself was not very proud of. Anyway, started to have some ideas. I'm trying to come up with stuff. So I came up with a story about with a period story of this person thinking about those things that I said, ideas about illnesses, historical memory, and I wrote this screenplay kind of as a guide, not to make a narrative film, and then I put it on her side of the bed, so that when she would return, she would see it, she would read it, and when she came back, she read it and she liked it. She wanted something else, so different things. She wanted more emphasis on the, if I remember, more emphasis on the female character's experience. More, there was, but much more, as opposed to that other stuff, the historical memory stuff. And that's essentially how it started. And then I'm going to let her finish the second part. Suffice it to say, she had another conference that she was going to, and she took me this time. She took me, and she explained where it was, but there we met Michelle, and the rest is history.
Yay! Record time! 40 years of being together, so, hey. Yes, when Mark originally wrote the screenplay and left it on my side of the bed, the character was not written for a deaf actress. We happened to see this powerful, wonderful, amazing performance in St. Paul, Minnesota at the Northern Science Theater. And it was my muse, Michelle Banks, performing her one-woman play. And so, we did the independent thing. We stalked her. After the play was over, and remember, there's no cell phones or any way to text message back in 1992. So we're writing on the newspaper, the free newspaper. Have you ever thought about being in a film? Would you be interested in maybe being in a film? And back and forth, with paper and pen. And she said yes. And I was like, thank God. But that meant we had to do a whole lot of research and go back and really make it so that it could reflect deaf experience as much as possible. And so that meant connecting with Michelle and with Christopher Smith, who plays the dancer friend Bill Young in the contemporary section. He lived in Chicago. Michelle lived in New York at that time. And we would go back and forth and give them the screenplay so they could make comments on it for us. And also, I started to take some ASL, American Sign Language classes, and just kind of get to know the Black deaf community in Chicago so that we could try to make it as authentic and realistic as possible.
Thank you. And before I open it up to the audience, which I will, I just would like to bring Michelle in and ask you to speak to your emotions and thoughts about what it was like to be cast in this role, to embody this character, and really what it meant for you.
Yes, so when I met Mark and Zeinabu, I remember they came to me and I was like, surprised. It was really a nice surprise for them to recognize my work, and they really wanted to have a deaf experience in the film. And so I said yes, because there's not often stories about Black deaf people available to the public or on the big screen or on TV even. And I said, yes, yes. I've only known a couple of roles, like maybe one or two, so I immediately said yes, because they asked me to be part of that history and part of that process, and for the filming and to take on that role. I was very thrilled. I was so excited. And I had the motivation to do so much research as well about the time periods, and in the 1900s, the early 1900s, how would Black deaf people communicate at that time? What did the signs look like at that time? And so I did some research, and I started speaking with deaf elders as well and getting advice from them, and I was able to incorporate that all into my character so I could better embody those characters of the early in 1900. And it was really a challenge for me because I had never before performed in film before. That was my first experience with that. So I tend to have most experiences on stage, you know, so you're doing a lot of big acting, big facial expressions. You know, I had to really shrink it down for the big thing. You could see even my eyes on the screen, right? So I had to work so hard just to change how I showed myself and just make sure that everything, all of the expressions, the body language, all of the gestures, the emotion, you can see all of it, and that all of it was in me and in that character. So I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed learning it. But that character, from the early 1900s to now, those two characters, both of those stories, they really were kind of parallel with each other. Having a hearing person and a deaf person in a relationship with each other. And, you know, it's a similar thing. Deaf people can't hear, but we still can love and experience romance and experience sickness and struggle and challenges and successes. And so I really wanted to bring that to the big screen. The deaf people, we live the same lives, you know? So that's it, yeah. And I could add more, but I'll stop.
I'd like to take it out to the audience. So if anyone has a question, please raise your hand. Yeah, we have Jen here. If you could wait for the microphone.
Hi, my friend.
Okay. Oh, also, before anyone goes anywhere, I just want to shout out these goodie bags down here are for people who ask questions. So that gives you an incentive to... Inside them is a copy of Compensation on Blu-ray, and I believe a copy of the Criterion edition of... Yeah, suddenly we have 1,000 questions. But no, let's go with this gent here, please.
So I'm going to sign my comments. Great. Hi, everybody. Hi, Michelle. It's good to see you again. Michelle and I were old classmates back in the day. I don't know if I should tell you what year, but anyway, with that. I have a question for the authors, the directors. Just out of curiosity, you know, you talked about how you met Michelle, which was in St. Paul, Minnesota. However, I am wondering, what was the actual impetus that inspired you to say, I want to use a deaf actress? Because, you know, historically, as we all know, someone who is Black and deaf is often overlooked in the mainstream. So was there something that just said to you, yes, I have to have Michelle? A feeling or something?
This film is a reparation for the violence of early cinema history, meaning that it's done in a silent film style because when we were at film school, shout out to my UCLA folk up in here, we were bludgeoned with a film called Birth of a Nation, which translation should be Birth of the KKK, right? And so that film is part of the reason why we have so much systemic racism in this country. Deaf people, deaf actors were some of the first to actually train hearing actors how to perform for cinema. So to give you two quick examples, Lon Chaney is part of Nosferatu, and there's another film that just escaped me. But he's the son, he's a coda, he's the child of deaf adults. And then someone who we're very familiar with, if you study or love cinema, Charlie Chaplin. One of his best friends was an artist, a multi-hyphenate by the name of Granville Redmond. And he's the one who can be credited with actually teaching Charlie Chaplin slapstick style so that could translate. But how come when we go to film schools or we study cinema, we don't know this? So Michelle was so powerful in her one-woman play. When you see great talent, it don't matter. You figure out a way to use that great talent. And so that was the impetus for us to say, okay, we're gonna do this no matter what. It was hard. She had to deal with a whole lot of BS because it was a low budget project. It wasn't something that was, where we had a lot of funding to hire full-time interpreters the whole time. And, but she, Michelle, Anne-Marie Bryan, another filmmaker, and Christopher Smith and all of the other actors that were a part of the production, they really were very patient with us knucklehead hearing people. So I'm still forever grateful because they bought into the vision, they believed, and so we succeeded.
I'm going to go by the column, please. Yeah.
Hello. The film so beautifully braided together all of the intersections of Michelle's character, of being Black, being a woman, and being deaf. And I think the pieces that you just named around, I think the inception point of history of cinema. I think my question is, you alluded to it in the way that we were talking about the segregation of Black students within schools of the deaf. But what were the choices that you all made in the writing and the editing of the script to kind of braid these struggles together and the fights for these things? And were there choice points of when and where to include Black American Sign Language and American Sign Language generally? How did you kind of tussle with those two things?
I think, Michelle alluded to it a little earlier that we had to figure out how to frame differently because we can't cut off Michelle's hands. That's the way she uses to express herself. So it was a matter of really just paying attention and taking care with what we did. She just told you how she did research to find out how Black deaf culture was at the turn of the century. Language, just like cinema, evolves. So it's not the same as it was, it's not the same in 2025 as it was in 1890, whatever. So that's what we were kind of like making sure, you know, that we took care, we did the research. Our parents sent us to school so we could get some knowledge, so we're gonna use this knowledge, right? And we applied it to whatever we could do with cinema. So that was important to us. Yeah. Did I answer your question? We can talk a little bit more afterwards. I'm just trying to get some more people to get some questions in here. And, sorry,
Also, I want to
Yes.
add something to that too.
yes.
I'd like to add, you have to understand, back then, during segregation, we had the deaf school for colored, and then the deaf white school. They were separate and segregated. And the black deaf schools developed their own sign language from consistently signing with each other. And the white students, the deaf white students, they sort of had an established language, you know, ASL, and they would develop their own communication system. So at the Black Deaf Institute, we similarly developed our own signs, and they are extremely different. Until many, 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 many years later, I want to say in the 1980s maybe, finally they reintegrated the different schools together, and we were sort of able to see each other, and black deaf people were able to essentially adopt their language, the white deaf language, into their own. So nowadays, typically you see ASL, but back in the day, BASL, they didn't have the name BASL as in black ASL. Today, we still have discussions and we still have debates about what is BASL, Black American Sign Language, what does that entail, what does that look like, what does that mean? And we have a lot of evidence and fact-based research to show that there was a very clear segregation between the two languages and how they developed. And there's a book called Black Deaf Values that is about the history of deaf institutions and segregation and how that language developed, how the cultures developed differently. And so for that film, it was very important that I included that experience and some of those signs as well. So you notice, for example, when I'm communicating with my mother in the film, my character is, I'm trying to remember how I sign it, let me think. For example, we sign like this, something like this, I can't remember the sign now. Do you remember?
It's very
The point
closed.
is-
It's very closed.
The point is, there's a lot of gestures and signs that are used in the film that are representative of the language for the Black Deaf Institute specifically. So things like that, signs like this, and signs like this that were used at that time that are used differently now. The sign for help, how it's signed at that time versus how it's signed now. There's a lot of diversity in the signs like that.
In answer to part, in answer to your question, let me say, for example, on the set, Michelle taught us, I cannot do it right, but Michelle taught us how to say cool in sign language, or in BASL, and it's, Michelle can do it for her, but the way she did it was, you could see a black style, black elegance, and she would show us the regular way.
Cool, something like that.
The regular way, and then the black, she should do it for you. But anyway, the research showed us, because we didn't know anything. We were, as Z said, kind of down in here folks. The research showed that there was such a thing as a BSL, and in our research, so it behooved us to not only treat this with the highest respect that we could muster. And not to mess us up, definitely, but you're going to make mistakes. But as far as research, to do this thing right, to show the deaf factors in the world, they're not going to be the unicorn, the one black friend, the one deaf. We don't want to do that. and we had to basically, Z had to basically kind of like not reinvent cinema, but do it differently. So that some of the mistakes that were made, for example, one of the things we did not want to make was, you know this film, Children of a Lesser God, we did not want to do that.
Thank you. And you may or may not have just heard the Triangle of Doom. Time for two more, I think. We'll come to you and we'll start with you first, please, then we'll come to you.
By the way, we do have a 26-page booklet that we worked our buns off to produce this. So, as I said in my Criterion closet, don't skip out on the features.
And let's try and rattle through these so we can hear from a couple of people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the film. My mask is wet because I was weeping. It was so beautiful. My question is about religion. I'm curious about the decision to include Ifa, I believe,
Yes.
as Nico's religion. And I was wondering also about the mirror in the earlier period, because there seem to be mirrors of like the relationship and the poems, etc. And I was just wondering if there was a mirror in the early 1900s that I missed with the religion.
No, you didn't miss anything. And that is discussed in the booklet. So get the DVD Blu-ray. You asked the question. Good job.
This is someone who's playing ahead of the game.
Yes, yes,
we'll
girl.
come to you and then you if we have time.
Okay.
The microphone is coming up. Oh, there's one right there. Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to Philadelphia.
This is home. I'm from here.
Even better. Even better. Also about religion, the Deaf Lutheran Church, was that a real church in Chicago?
In the contemporary period or the period section?
Both.
In the period section, it's made up. In the contemporary section, yes, that is a church that does exist in Chicago on the south side.
And was there a specific reason why Chicago was chosen?
That's where we lived.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
We'll get to the business end of the Q&A. And to you in the middle, you had your hand up for a while. Middle row, if you could. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. You showed this from a long time ago in the 1900s, and you used BASL. I think that's the first time personally I've seen BASL. And it's been around a long time. Is there any reason that you know that, from a long time ago? I mean, this is like an early period movie. From the 1920s on. Did we have BASL after that? Your deaf character, are they using BASL?
I think that our movie is the first movie to really represent BSL in film. I think in the 1900s, when film started, there wasn't really a lot of examples of BSL in film. And there were like a few times that it had popped up, but really this is the first major example of BASL used in a film. So
We need to see more of it. I want to see more of it.
Thank you so much for the question. Thank you everybody for your questions. There is a meet and greet with the filmmaking team over in the Film Centre where you can get posters. I urge you all to come across and keep talking. Thank you to everyone on the stage. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. The posters are free.